Sometimes you're watching a movie or reading a book and you just hate the love interest. I definitely felt that way with Twilight and The Kissing Booth. But why is it exactly that we find these characters so despicable? I hosted a poll with our readers at Lost Island Press and put together a list of 5 ingredients that make a compelling love interest. Ingredient number 1, impact. I need the romantic subplot to be at least somewhat related to the main story. Otherwise, it'll feel like reading a side mission from a video game. It doesn't necessarily need to be an impact on the plot directly, like they don't need to be a spy who is helping out in the main mission, but they need to have at the very least an impact on the protagonist that changes how they approach the main conflict in the story. A love interest is done right when they help the main character change as a person. It's important for the love interest to impact the protagonist's internal character development and get them to become a better or worse person, depending on the story's direction. I love how this is done in Underground Royalty by Meltor Franca. The way Pinto's forbidden romance with Everest impacts his beliefs is ruthlessly brilliant. Another reader also brought up my latest book. Everest and Pinto make for one of the best romances I've ever read. Pinto is struggling with feelings of betrayal, and Everest understands what he's going through. She gives Pinto someone to blame for his feelings other than himself, and gives him the purpose and motivation he lost. I was so relieved to find out that readers enjoyed the romantic subplot in Underground Royalty. It was very nerve-wracking for me to write because I had never written anything like that before. A love interest that is done right helps move the main character's arc forward. For instance, in a story about a man training for a fight, a perfect love interest would further motivate the protagonist to push himself to win. An arc that makes the main character grow because of a negative influence, like realizing the person they've been chasing is wrong for them, can also be compelling. This is such a good point to bring up. It's totally fine to have a love interest who is toxic and plays a negative role in the protagonist's life, especially if your protagonist is undergoing a corruption arc. Obviously, there is a caveat to this point. You don't want to romanticize the toxic traits, but we'll talk about that one a little bit later. Ingredient 2, compatibility. A lot of readers brought it up, and I think particularly in the context of enemies to lovers. Love interests are done right when two characters get together in a way that is in character. For example, with the enemies to lovers trope, if it feels like the good person could fall for the evil person in real life, then the author is doing something right. But if they get together simply for drama, then there's really no point. If these people were your friends, would you believe them starting to date, essentially? Love interests are done right when the relationship makes sense. It's not done well when there's no reason for the relationship to happen, other than the author wanting to shove a trope in, or the reader expecting it because it's usually what happens. It's good to have opposites attract, but even in such situations, they should still have things in common on which to build a foundation. Astrid and Hiccup from the How to Train Your Dragon series is a perfect example of this. Hiccup isn't as interested in fighting as Astrid, whose entire life is centered around training. He's more interested in cartography and inventing. However, both characters find common ground. A love for their home, their friends, family, and later, dragons. That is their foundation. I think this is an amazing takeaway if you are writing an enemies to lovers romance yourself. You still need to give them some form of compatibility. They can't just hate each other. They have to have some kind of common goal or common interest, something that is eventually going to be a point of connection for them. Ingredient 3, incompatibility. There are no perfect relationships in the real world, and readers appreciate when fictional stories reflect that. Love interests are done right when they have some time to grow to know each other and don't fall in love immediately. If they are too obsessed with each other right away, it takes away from the journey of the characters getting to know each other to see if the partner is worth it. There needs to be some conflict, some reasons to not pursue this person. The love interest should have their own flaws and imperfections. There should be some things about the other person that they dislike and slowly learn to accept or even appreciate over time. For example, in Underground Royalty, Everest dislikes many of Pinto's traits, yet he ends up growing on her, and she learns to appreciate the way he is. The end result is much more satisfying when you add tension and conflict along the way. Ingredient 4, independence. Love interests are done right when they have agency and are allowed to have their own stories. I don't necessarily think that you have to linger too long on the love interest stories. You can still add bits about their life through backstory, through dialogue, to show that they have more going on than just being the love interest, to kind of build what their world looks like. Each partner should be a character of their own, with flaws, goals, and a personality. The love interest should add to them, but not complete them. Love interests have to be their own people with their own stories to matter to me. The love interest should complement the MC, but not necessarily complete them, implying the MC is not valid on their own. I thought it was really interesting that Victor and Rain both brought up essentially the same terminology with complete in quotes and everything. I was trying to further unpack what they were trying to say, and I think the main thing is that these characters should not be lacking in some way and need the other character to make them interesting. They both need to be interesting in isolation, and the romantic subplot just makes them even more interesting together. The main pitfall that you want to avoid is making these characters a little bit hollow and thinking that the romantic subplot is going to spice things up. It's not. Ingredient number 5, believability. It's okay for there to be red flags in a love interest, so long as it is framed as a red flag, but when it is romanticized, people have a big problem with that. Love interests are done wrong when abuse in the relationship is framed as appreciation. I hate it when one person insults the other and is constantly putting them down, but the other person doesn't seem to care and just laughs and goes on loving them. It's stupid and annoying because it's a huge red flag in real relationships. A terrible love interest is a character who pushes the MC to make bad decisions without the MC realizing it. More precisely, when the author writes a love interest who influences the MC in a toxic way, and readers are still expected to root for them. That's really the key here. You can have a love interest with toxic traits, but don't expect the readers to root for that character or love them because of that. That's one of the reasons why I really don't like the Twilight series. I can't speak on the books, I haven't read them, but in the movies, I just don't understand the love interests because they both just seem very toxic and awful all around, and yet we're supposed to be rooting for at least one of them to end up with her. I just never bought into that, but it was a fun series for the giggles of it.
Where the hell have you been, Luca?
You better hold on tight, spider monkey.
On the flip side, it is also not believable for a character to be so perfectly romantic and just be this all-around dreamy character. I love when romantic dialogue has raw, unfiltered emotions that play significant roles in their dynamic, not when it feels as if they are reading off a paper that has a script. One thing I don't care for are extremely poetic confessions of love, particularly from male love interests.
So the lion fell in love with the lamb.
It's cringe to me, especially when the guy has been portrayed as a less talkative, more logical person. Maybe it's just a thing in young adult books, I don't know, but it doesn't feel realistic. Alright, so to summarize, here are the 5 ingredients that make a compelling love interest. 1. Impact. The love interest needs to change how the protagonist thinks and acts. 2. Compatibility. The love interest should feel like someone the protagonist would actually fall for in real life. 3. Incompatibility. The love interest should have some traits that the protagonist doesn't like, and vice versa. 4. Independence. The love interest should have more purpose than just being a love interest. 5. Believability. The love interest shouldn't have romanticized red flags or be over-poetic in how they express themselves. Before you go, I would be so excited to hear who your favorite love interest is in the comment section below, whether it be from a book, show, movie, or video game. I also want to take a moment to thank everyone who submitted answers to the survey that I sent to the Lost Island Press newsletter, some of which I featured in this video. If you want to participate in future surveys on bookish topics and potentially be featured in a YouTube video as well, please join the Lost Island Press newsletter. I'll have a link in the description below. And as a welcome gift, you'll also receive a free ebook of my soft sci-fi novel, Capsule. Thank you so much for watching this video, and until next time, get lost.